Black the Name by D.B. Halpert. Narrated by the author, D.B. Halpert. Chapter 10. Why? A wet, slobbering tongue pastes Elizabeth's face, waking her. The brilliant early morning rays of sunlight temporarily blind the young girl as she opens her eyes with a laugh in her voice, saying, "Stop, Boop." The instant the name leaves her tongue, Elizabeth's mind begins jumping to the possibilities of how the small orb friend could have made it back to her, and not caring, she rubs her eyes, wanting her vision to focus. Elizabeth's heart sinks again when the voice of a small boy calls out, and her vision clears, revealing a small brown dog, accompanied by an elf boy who appears to be half Elizabeth's age, chasing behind. "Helen, come here, boy. I'm so sorry. He likes strangers." Elizabeth stands, wiping the slobber from her cheek and hiding her sad feelings, begins a smile and shrugs. "No need to apologize. I love dogs." And squatting back down, she begins rubbing the small canine's head. Reaching his pet, the small boy looks at the two women, and seeing the greatly damaged state of Elizabeth's nightdress, lets a look of concern take his heavy breaths from his expression, asking, "Where are you from?" Elizabeth looks up quickly at the question, taken slightly aback by the first instance of someone asking the question since the group arrived. And looking first to Pearl, still sleeping, then back to the kid, she responds, "A far way away." The boy's expression doesn't shift as his inquisition continues. "Why are you wearing that night dress? It is so torn and dirty. Don't you have other clothes you could wear?" Elizabeth is almost shocked at the kid's line of questioning, replying, confused, not sure what to feel toward the first person to show any care to the fact that she was wearing a filthy, blood-sodden nightdress with two large tears in the back and several smaller rips in the fabric across its sides. "No, I don't." The boy's face shifts to a look of contemplation for a second before the look of joy explodes forth from his, as he nearly shouts, "I know my sister has some old clothes she has outgrown. You can have some of them. Have you had breakfast yet?" Surprise causes Elizabeth to withdraw only slightly with the sudden expression of nicety. "No." "Well, come on, before Mama gives all the leftovers to the pigs," the boy exclaims, reaching a hand for Elizabeth. Hesitatively, Elizabeth reaches toward the hand, and impatient, the boy reaches down, grabbing it after her hand got within an inch of his. With a swift pull, the young elf tugs Elizabeth to her feet, suddenly putting the two into a run. Spinning once, the boy calls back to the dog, "Come on, Vahalan," which causes the small dog to bounce after them. The small collection of houses is lively, even as the morning sun only just begins shining down on them. The scent of burning wood and fresh bread dance with the scent of morning dew evaporating from the forest and grass underfoot. Patting and crunching of grass underfoot rises up a single set of sounds, adding to the orchestra of bird calls, conversing townspeople, and the mixture of noises from a sparse number of livestock beasts. Passing from the largest collection of buildings and entering the area more populated by trees, the portion of the grove the small elf boy brings Elizabeth to holds a quaint home with a fenced area holding several types of farm animal just behind. The two bipedal youngsters stop and a short distance from the structure, letting the dog, yipping, bound forward, continuing through the open pale birch door. From within, a beautiful elven woman steps to the door, causing the boy to call out to her, "Mama, have you fed the pigs the leftovers from breakfast yet?" "I told you to do that before you left, Nereus. It is still waiting for you to do," the woman responds, putting her hand on her hip. "Who's your friend?" The young boy, Nereus, shakes a fist of success before turning to Elizabeth with a look of curiosity on his face. With his mother's question, Elizabeth, with both sets of eyes on her, sheepishly calls back, cupping her mouth with a single hand to amplify her shy and meager response. "Elizabeth!" Immediately pulling Elizabeth by the hand forward to the door, Nereus exclaims at his mother, "She's from far away. She was sleeping outside the elder hovel. The Howlin woke her. She hasn't eaten and didn't look like she had any food with her, or her mother. So I thought we could let them have our leftovers." The woman kneels down with a smile to her child's words, responding with a caring parental voice. "That is so sweet. We would love to have you as a guest for breakfast. Where is your mother?" Elizabeth looks with a worried confusion at the question as the young boy responds for her. "She is still sleeping by the elder's hovel." Elizabeth shakes her head, raising her hand defensively, retorting the statement. That's not my mother. That is Pearl." The mother looks with worry at Elizabeth's expression, asking, "Where's your mother, dear?" "Not around. Pearl is helping me return home," Elizabeth explains, her head dropping to look at the ground. "I'm sorry to hear that. I will warm up some food for you to come in and have, if you want to get cleaned up," the woman says, standing back up. Almost interrupting the end of his mother's comment, Nereus tugs on her dress, saying, "This is the only clothes Elizabeth has. I was thinking sister could give her some of her dresses, one she's outgrown." "What another nice idea. But that will be up to your sister," the boy's mother responds before cupping her hands and calling to a younger female elf working in a nearby garden. "Val, could you come here for a moment?" Standing and walking over while removing a pair of dirt-covered gloves, the young girl, who appears only a year or two older than Elizabeth, smiles and, looking to her mother, asks, "Yes, Mama?" "Elizabeth here has been traveling a very long way in just her nightdress. I won't force you to, but if you wanted to give her one or two of your outfits that you have outgrown, that would be a very nice gesture." The girl puts her hand to her chin for a moment, before, with a smile, she bounces, leaning her head to the side, exclaiming, "Sure." "Well, why don't you go help her clean up, and I will warm her some breakfast," the mother says, turning back into the small house. Grabbing Elizabeth's wrist, the elven girl Val pulls her into the house to a small room in the back, and sitting her on a wooden bed frame, pulls out a large chest from beneath it. The room has two small wooden bed frames and a small window through which the dim shadows of light passing through the trees outside illuminates the room. The bed on the opposite side of the room from Elizabeth is messy and unmade, while the one she is sat upon is tucked tightly and tidy. Opening the chest, Val reveals it full of different outfits and patches of fabric. While she rummages through the clothes, Val asks curiously, "So, where are you from?" Elizabeth, speechless from the pure generosity being expressed to her, blinks twice at the question, focusing to respond. "Sorry. Well, a pretty far way away." Lifting with a contemplative look toward Elizabeth, Vol shoves the fabric back into the chest, dissatisfied with the cloth continuing the conversation.
Well, I mean, this is a large world, and I know you're not an elf.
She flicks the ends of one of her tall pointed ears, 4 inches in length, before turning back to Elizabeth with a smile.
And I was just wondering where people come from to have such beautiful hair.
Elizabeth is shocked by the comment, and remaining silent, she grabs a handful of dust infused greasy hair with dry blood holding several locks, which have now completely returned to sky blue. And seeing the strange, almost disbelieving look on Elizabeth's face, Val continues.
Well, I know your hair is dirty now, but Mama said you have been traveling some time. Once we wash it, I know it will be beautiful.
Elizabeth looks gratefully to Val, and Val returns a look that shows her pleasure in being able to help someone. A look which breaks the moment Neris sticks his head into the room asking,
You done yet?
Immediately upon the question reaching her ear, Val's head whips to the door with anger in her eyes. She yells at the young boy.
What does it matter to you? Don't you have chores to do?
Grumbling, Neris steps from the door and turning back to Elizabeth, Val apologizes.
Sorry about my brother. He is too nosy for his own good. It's going to get him in trouble when he gets older.
Elizabeth gives a gentle shrug, responding,
Well, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here right now, being treated so nicely by you and your mother.
Val just returns to a smile for a second before the realization strikes her mind, and she slams the chest closed. Exclaiming in excited memory, Val jumps to the bed and, pulling a second chest from beneath it, throws it open quickly, saying,
I know this one would be perfect for you.
Grabbing a pile of cloth, Val steps to the door, gesturing for Elizabeth to follow.
Come on, let's cook you a bath.
The two step to another small room, in which a small metal tub sits alone with 2 wooden buckets. Setting down the bundle of clothes, Val picks up the buckets, handing one to Elizabeth, and begins again leading her away. Stepping from the house, the two find their way down a thin dirt path to a small stone well with petite daisies poking from the edge where the stone meets the dirt. Filling their buckets, the two ladies begin their way back to the house. After another minute of walking, the two young women return to the house where a warm plate of food waits for Elizabeth. Stepping into the washing room again, Val sets down her bucket, lifting the pile of cloth in its 3 pieces, explaining,
I'm guessing you're going to be sticking around. Since you were in such a hurry, you aren't going to be sticking around. Since you were in such a hurry to begin the journey you're on, you didn't bring anything more than your sleeping dress. This should be a bit more durable and hopefully more comfortable. I also have a spare sleeping dress you can have to replace that one, which I want you to take before you go. Now, give me that old thing, and I'll see if I can clean and repair it any before you are done.
Still mystified by the generosity, Elizabeth simply complies, removing her sleeping dress and handing it to Val. Val, in turn, looks back at Elizabeth in horror, seeing across the young stranger's torso, hidden by the dress before, a myriad of scars, which, with each varying in shape and size, giving the impression of multiple instruments used to create them, the largest being 2 symmetrical scars between her shoulder blades and spine. Not wanting to be too nosy, Val holds her tongue from inquiring the scar's source, while she turns and leaves the small washroom, taking the dirty night dress. Removing the last vestige of clothing from her waist, Elizabeth steps into the tub and, sinking down into it, feels the cold metal press against her flesh. Shivers shoot through Elizabeth's spine as she freezes with her mind flashing back to the memory of cold iron spikes being drawn across her skin or being placed in burning coals. The voice returns to her of the man who forced her with the serrated dagger to slit Bartholomew's throat, while across her body she feels him sliding cold iron insidiously pressing into her to the point just before a bruise would be formed, explaining, "If your connection won't strengthen itself when we care for you, then we must put you through strife. We must draw forth the power of our Lord, that which he has imbued within you, with a fragment of his soul mixed with that foolish divine servant of the ark." The door swings back open, interrupting the terrifying memory, with Vol holding a towel, looking in to see Elizabeth in a cold sweat, breathing heavy, with her body stiff and hands tightly grasping the edge of the tub. A surge of concern takes Vol, and she drops to the tub's side, and taking Elizabeth's hand, she asks,
Elizabeth, what's wrong?
Elizabeth turns her head, letting her breath stabilize.
I'm fine. Bad memory.
Vol looks down at the scars, asking softly,
Did it have anything to do with those?
Elizabeth shifts her weight in the tub, responding with an almost apologetic nod.
Yeah.
Vol stands, closes the door, and picks up the towel, stepping to Elizabeth. While dipping the cloth into one of the buckets and bringing the wet rag to Elizabeth's shoulder, Vol explains,
Well, it seems like you need to talk about it. So how about you talk and I wash? Thank you.
Elizabeth's voice cracks as her head drops and tears begin to roll from her eyes, mixing with the water that becomes black, with the dust from the plain of undeath and the dried blood washing from Elizabeth's form. With a dry towel, Elizabeth pats the remaining water from her skin, watching the door again open and close behind Vol, who returns again from her room with another wad of cloth. Tossing the wad forward, Elizabeth uncoordinately tries to hold her drying towel and catch the cloth flying towards her, unsuccessfully. Failing at both catching the cloth and holding up her towel, Elizabeth bends over to pick them up, unraveling the cloth wad into two pieces. One, a pair of underpants, the other, a long strip of cloth about a foot wide and more than 5 times that in length. Vol explains before Elizabeth's look of confusion can develop into a question.
You're old enough. Your old pair were baggy and ancient, almost like they were made for a boy 1,000 years ago. And you will be thankful for that in a year or so. I mean, you're only a year or two younger than me, so you will grow to the need for it soon. Here, let me show you how to put it on.
Still, even with the amount of generosity shown to her, Elizabeth is hesitant to put on the undergarments, straining to find Vol behind her. Finding the middle of the fabric, Vol pulls it against Elizabeth's chest and begins wrapping it around the confused teen as Elizabeth asks,
Why are you being so nice to me? You only met me this morning.
Vol stops for a second to think about the question, not believing herself to have been more hospitable than her normal levels, and continuing the wrapping, responds,
You have been through more than anyone I know, and are lost in a time not your own. I couldn't think to know how scared you must be of everyone you don't know intimately. The reason I think we are more giving than you think we should be is you are so frightened of what terrible thing may befall you next, that you have forgotten some of what the man Bartholomew must have taught you. When I was very young, younger than my brother is now, a man, a human man, came through our village, and in exchange for food and shelter for a night, he said he would bless our village under the protection of Archangel. Most people didn't believe him, but a family did take him in, and during the night, goblins attacked. The man stood alone against the goblins, calling upon radiant power of the god Archangel. He drove away the beastmen, and with that found himself a home in this village for whenever he is in need of one. He stayed for 3 years after that, teaching us the word of Archangel's holy texts. The reason I think you believe us so nice is because we practice what he taught. Be generous to those who are in need, for when you are in need, you will need others to be generous to you. Defend those who are in danger, as Archangel defends you. Comfort those who sit in sorrow, for the day is to be held in joy. For each day you yet live, Archangel has held off the evils who seek your demise, and bear witness in admiration all that is beautiful. For beauty is the presence of the good works of Archangel around you. Beauty is the essence of good.
Tying a bow knot to bind the two ends of the fabric together, Ball is taken by surprise by Elizabeth spinning around to give her a massive, grateful hug, whispering,
"Thank you."
Drawing away, Elizabeth explains,
Bartholomew told me before he passed to remember what he had taught me, and until now I think I'd forgotten some of it.
With a smile, Vol gives a nod, spinning around the room to the rest of the clothes.
Now, let's get you dressed so you can eat and take some food to your friend. She's probably going to be worried about you when she wakes and you aren't there.